are and the points that we have been discussing. Who remembers what we did in the last class? Yes, go ahead, Fiza.
So in the last class, we read Act 2, and then we started discussing the characteristics of Kautilya and Rakshas and how they are different from each other, how similar they are, and their contributions to the play. Then we discussed how Kautilya is as a hero. He's a self-controlled hero, and there were certain words for it. I'm not able to recall at the moment, but there was a specific word to describe Kautilya as the main hero of the plot.
So who remembers that term for the self-controlled but vehement hero? Is a term used for that. Does anyone remember?
Yes, sir. And then we also talked about the.
Yeah. So what is that term? Yeah, Stuti, do you remember that term?
Adhrat, Adhrat something they call.
No, it is Dhirodhata. Uddhata and Dhirodhata. Yes, so you have Shant, Lalit and Uddhata. These are the three main characteristics. Three main kinds of heroes that Dhananjay talks about in his essay on drama, Sanskrit drama, right? 10th century critic named Dhananjay. And he says there are three types, Shanta, I'm sorry, Lalit, Dhir and Uddhat. And when you have people who are self-controlled as well as one of these characteristics, you have three more types of heroes. So you have Dhir Lalit. Lalit is playful, right? Sporting. Udatta means kind of exalted, serious, solemn. Dhir Udat, and finally Dhir Uddat, Dhirodhat, right? So these are some main kinds of protagonists in Sanskrit drama, ancient Sanskrit drama, right? Okay, go ahead. Stuti and Fiza, what else do you remember?
What the antagonist is like. We also talked about that.
Hmm. So who is the antagonist actually of the play?
Rakshasa.
Technically Rakshas, but you can see that he is not exactly the antagonist, right? He is not the bad guy.
Malaiketu.
Malaiketu, yes, comes close to antagonist, right? So you will also understand all these classifications and categories are not very rigorous, even if they exist, right? You cannot exactly describe Rakshas as uh, a villain. And interestingly, his name is Rakshas, which signifies Asur, but he is shown to have a human side, right? Rakshasas were the demons in Sanskrit mythology. So great Rakshas king was Ravan in Ramayana, right? Famous Rakshas. Okay, so he is characterized by the name Rakshas, but he is not a Rakshas. You can see that, right? He has a human side, and though he tries every trick in the book, Kautilya manages to turn it on him. So, what are the tricks, or what is the conflict of the play? What is the play about? What is the vastu of the play? Vastu is the subject, right?
Getting Rakshasa on Chandragupta Maurya's side.
Right. And why?
Because of how loyal he is.
Right. So finding the right person, getting right person, doing everything to get right person on your side, right? For the future of his kingdom, future of the empire against the Greek adversary. Okay. Very good. So that is the main theme of the play. And what are the strategies that people are using in this play? What are the strategies that Ravan has used? I'm sorry, Rakshas has used, and what are the strategies that Kautilya uses? Does anyone remember all the strategies that are being used?
So Kautilya tries to employ certain spies into Rakshasa's place, and then Rakshas also tries to employ certain spies into Kautilya's place. So they both are using the same tactics to try and
Right.
move over each other.
Both are using same tactics, right? Using spies, and what else apart from spies? Both of them are using spies.
The poison girl.
The poison girl, right? It was Philip, yeah. So what is the Sanskrit term for poison girl?
Vishkanya.
Vishkanya, right? So Vishakanya is sent. Who has sent Vishakanya? To whom, and what happens?
So originally Rakshasa had sent the Vishkanya to kill Chandragupta, but Kautilya managed to get her into Parvataka's chamber, and she by chance ended up killing him instead.
Right. And Parvataka is actually a person on Chandragupta's side, right? But he also demands some part of his kingdom. So even though he is an ally, Kautilya doesn't find him reliable because he wants the kingdom, right? He's not exactly the friend. So what he does is he sends that poison girl to Parvata, and the rumor is spread that Rakshas has killed Parvata, right? And Parvata's son is Malaiketu, who wants to take revenge on Chandragupta and Kautilya. But the rumor that is spread in the town is of Patliputra is that Rakshas killed Parvata. So the weapon that the Rakshas has used against Chandragupta is used against Rakshas, the same weapon, right? And that shows his kutilta or cunningness of Kautilya. Okay, very good. What else do you remember about the strategies?
He sent men to Chandragupta's chamber, and Kautilya saw some, pieces of bread lying. He saw a line of ants that was
Correct.
following a piece of bread or something like that, and he realized that there were men already in the room. So they closed the room and set fire to it.
Right, and so those men died, right? Those men who are sent to assassinate Chandragupta are discovered by surprise visit of Chanakya to Chandragupta's bedroom, right? And that is how he kills these men. Okay, what else? What was another strategy that Rakshas has used against Chandragupta?
He hired a doctor of medicine, and this person added poison to Chandragupta's drink. But
Right.
Kautilya, as a surprise test, made the doctor drink it first, and he died on the spot.
Right. Right. So again, that backfired, right? So Chanakya is able to detect this strategy well in advance and use it against Rakshas all the time. Very good. Right. There is some more strategy. What else? What are the other tricks?
There was this festival sort of a thing going on, and he had hired men to kill Chandragupta when he would be entering the palace on his elephant. But instead, Kautilya placed who was that other?
Who is that
I
other
can't
man?
remember. I can't remember the name of that
Right.
other king, but he placed the other king on the elephant, and there was a lot of confusion, and two of Rakshas's loyal men got killed in that scene.
Exactly. Right. So he has sent that instead of Chandragupta, he places another of his ally. I think, what is his name? उसका नाम यहाँ पे है. So the other ally of Chandragupta may be Vairodhaka. Yeah, Vairodhaka, who is one another ally of Chandragupta, is dressed as Chandragupta and sent to the festival, and people who wanted to assassinate Chandragupta by maybe prodding that elephant so that he goes berserk. What happens is this person Vairodhaka dies, and Vairodhaka is almost like a king, and he has lot of followers who then kill Rakshas's spies or Rakshas's what should I say, close people who are close to him, that is Daru Varman. So that carpenter actually, right, who is on page 209, ends up killing Vairodhaka instead of Chandragupta. So these are several strategies that have backfired for Rakshas, and Rakshas comes to know about all this from his spy called Viradgupta, right? So you can see that Rakshas is trapped. But in the first act, if you remember, what has happened in the first act? Does anyone remember?
Rakshas left Patliputra.
And what has he done? And what has happened in the first act?
He left his wife and son in care of Chandan Das.
Correct. Yeah.
And Kautilya's spy informs him कि चंदन दास करके एक उसका बहुत अच्छा friend है, and he has his wife and son in his place. So Kautilya catches hold of Chandan Das and asks him to hand over Rakshas's family.
Right.
And when Chandan Das refuses, he throws him along with his family in a jail with the idea that Rakshasa would certainly come to rescue him at some point of time
Correct.
because of his loyalty. If his idea was, if Chandan Das is not handing over Rakshasa's family even after the threat of execution, they must be really loyal to each other. So if one person is willing to give up his life for the other, so would the other person be like?
Right.
So,
And
and
what else? Yeah.
and he sends Siddharthaka to Rakshasa, to Malai Ketu's grounds with the signet ring of Rakshasa that he had found
So where did he find that signet ring?
in Chandan Das's house.
Right. So the spy had found this mudra of Rakshasa, right? And that gives the title Mudra Rakshas to the play. So that point is the beginning of realization by Chanakya that I have my grip around Rakshas now because I have got hold of his authorization seal, right? So he can send any letter and get it stamped using Rakshas's stamp, Rakshas's signet seal. So that is the point which is called Bindu of the play, right? So when Bija is the seed of the whole play, right? And the phala would be the final fruit would be when Rakshas joins Chandragupt's Chandragupt's team, right? Or so he goes on Chandragupt's side. That is the phala, right? So Bij and phala. That is how they used to think of Artha Prapti or plot in Sanskrit theatre. Okay, you can see how different it is from the Western model of plot given by Aristotle at beginning, middle, and the end, and usually ending tragically, right? Tragedy is a very important genre in the West, while in India we hardly have any tragedies, right? Sanskrit theatre did not have any tragedies. So, because probably belief that if you do good things will happen to you, if now sooner than later. That kind of belief in karma and all those things and rebirth ruled out possibility of tragedy in India very often. Okay, so we have seen this story so far, right? But we have also seen that Shakat Das is another close aide of Rakshas who is captured by Kautilya. What happens to him? Who is Shakat Das and what happens to him?
Kautilya sends Siddhartha. Kautilya writes a letter. We don't know the contents of the letter yet. And he gives it to Siddharthaka and says, get this written by a good scriptwriter, Shakat Das. And he.
And who is Siddharthaka?
Siddharthaka is an ally of Kautilya who is pretending to be a friend of Shakat Das. Kautilya also catches hold of Shakat Das and sends him to execution. For execution, and he makes Siddharthaka, rescue Shakat Das, quote unquote rescue Shakat Das.
So it's kind of a staged escape of Shakat Das.
Yes, to win their trust.
Why does he do that? उसके पीछे मकसद क्या है?
To win their trust.
To win the trust for whom? Who will win the trust?
Siddharthaka would win the trust of Shakat Das as well as Rakshasa. When they go to Rakshasa's chambers and tell ki acha ye Siddharthaka, this person came to my life and everything. And yeah.
So he is able to infiltrate Rakshasa's side, right? By gaining this trust of Rakshas. So this is infiltration and double agent that Siddharthaka is, right? That is very important. And Shakat Das has written this letter, and he's a letter writer basically, whose handwritings are excellent. So even if Rakshasa is making some proclamations and announcements, he asked Shakat Das to write, and he would put his stamp. So Chanakya also makes that letter and puts Rakshas seal on it, and he gives it to Siddharthaka to be used at the right moment. Right? And what else does Siddharthaka do?
He shows the signet ring of Rakshasa to Rakshas. And when Rakshasa asks where he found it, he says, I found it at, lying at Chandan Das's place, outside his house. He never mentions that he went inside.
So Chanakya has returned that signet ring and used it to infiltrate Rakshasa's side, right?
Yes. And when Rakshasa thinks that, this adds up, that he found it, outside Chandan Das's
so he could double check that whether Siddharthaka is actually not lying. Right. And plus there are also ornaments given by Malaiketu to Rakshas, which are then given to Siddhartha by Rakshas, because he is very happy that he saved Shakat Das's life. For him, that is the only good news in all these terrible news that he has heard. Right? Okay. So what do you make of this play till Act 2?
Strategy, trust, betrayal.
Yes.
We see all of this. How to manage a situation level-headedly and without your emotions getting, the best of you. So Chanakya doesn't even hesitate in killing his own allies, Parvataka and Vairodhaka.
Right. And all because he wants to have a strong, powerful kingdom against the outside enemy, the Greeks. Right? So outside enemy narrative is used to justify all these acts of which are unethical. Maybe they become ethical. Right? So that is, so you can see how much can you find resemblances to today's politics in this 1600-year-old play. Does it resemble today's political world? Yeah. Do you think this politics that you see is not a modern development, right? आजकल की चीज नहीं है, 1600 साल से you can see that. Yes, no?
But sir, आज के politics में सर double agents and ये सब इतना सब होता है?
What do you think?
Yes, sir, certainly. Because yes, sir, sometimes BJP rulers transfer to Congress, and Congress once transfer to BJP, so happens.
So changing the sides is, and what I mean here is not just BJP and Congress or ideology. I am talking about the strategy and the real politics. the term used in political science, real politics, right? यानी थियरी नहीं है ये, एक्चुअल प्रैक्टिस है. एक्चुअल प्रैक्टिस में राजनीति कैसे होती है, right? Not theories, not the great idealistic conversation, but in actual everyday terms, the calculations that are often done are on the basis of loyalty, trust, strategies, betrayals, people who are infiltrating other people's side, gathering information, spying, and so on and so forth, right? And you will find that in a very ancient text from which much of material is used in this play, and that ancient text is Arthashastra, right? And the writer of the Arthashastra is the protagonist of this play. Kautilya's Arthashastra deals with these things about spying and espionage and how to expand kingdom, how to have taxes, how to make friends, allies, how to expand your kingdom, how to break alliances, right? Those are the themes that you find in Kautilya's Arthashastra. So what you can do is maybe you can read up Arthashastra if you find it somewhere and compare it with the play. You'll find how these themes are used in Arthashastra, from Arthashastra. Right? Okay. So when we come to Act 3, and we are not going to have a detailed discussion on this given the paucity of time that we have. The Act 3, now that you have a sense of the language of the play, and you also have a sense of how the story is moving in the play, the third act is about the festival of full moon, which Chandragupta wants to celebrate with great pomp and splendor. But behind the scene is an agreement done by Kautilya and Chandragupta that we are going to feign a disagreement and fight. झूठ मूठ की लड़ाई करेंगे. Except that but Chandragupta is annoyed by Kautilya's decision to cancel it. Right. So the entire act is about this kind of pretend fight. Right. So I just want you to look at certain things which would be interesting. At every point, Kautilya is giving him advice, and Vrishala, that is Chandragupta, is pretending to be angry with him. So there is a lot of discussion on statecraft, right, in this act. Page 226, where he says, listen, Vishal, textbooks on statecraft distinguish between three types of government: monarchical, ministerial, or monarchical and ministerial. You have a ministerial government, no need to tire your tongue and brain searching after reason. It's my job. So it's all a pretense fight that is going on. But what is interesting for us that we learn about the Shastra of politics, Rajniti, right? And there were multiple texts available. One is extinct, and that is Kautilya's Arthashastra. But he cites multiple textbooks. So these textbooks were destroyed. But statecraft manuals existed. and they made a distinction between monarchical government, where king is the absolute sovereign, and you have ministerial government where ministers have a lot of power, not the king. And the third is monarchical and ministerial, combination of both. And he says that our kingdom of Magad is combination of both. And so you are not, it's not your job to decide on these things. I will decide, I will also take decisions, says Kautilya, and which emperor turns his face in a show of anger.
And then पीछे से वो there are these bards employed by Rakshasa who sort of
praise
हाँ.
the king. And that's why Kautilya is doing it in front of them so that they would go and tell Rakshas कि जेल में पिस्तौल आ गया है, right? So he's using all the information channels against Rakshas. I hope you know what I'm saying when I say jail mein pistol aa gaya. It's the use of information grapevines against the people, right? You deliberately use this information grapevines. You know what is a grapevine, right? These are unofficial channels of information. Have you heard of grapevines? No one has heard of grapevines? Well, grapevine is a kind of, it's a pity. Maybe, I don't know why you have never heard of the term grapevine. It's a channel of information which is more on the lines of gossip, right? So gossip is a very important source of information or misinformation. And then Kautilya gets a list of people, those associates of Chandragupta who have defected to Malaiketu's side. Bhadrabhatta, Purushdatta, Hingurat, and page 228. And Kautilya accuses Chandragupta of why you are not taking any action against them, or why did you not do anything about it? Again, Kautilya tries to explain or pretends to explain it to Chandragupta on page 230 that there are two kinds of action, Rishala, that one can take against subject with a grievance. Either reward them or punish them. We will take reward first, and in the case of Bhadrabhatta and Purushdatta, dismiss them from their post. This would have meant reinstating them. And to reinstate men whom their vices have made so incompetent would be to strike at the very foundation of our government. So the fight, the feigned fight between Chandragupta and Kautilya continues over appointment of men, celebration of festivals, and so on and so forth.
Sir, all this time, even during this exchange, are the bards still there? Like, are they still listening to this conversation? Or
Probably, right? Okay. They are doing it in public.
Okay, okay.
So that everybody will know. Public में झगड़ा करना जानबूझ के. So the differences that they are discussing are in public regarding what to do with these people who have defected to Malay Ketu's side and so on and so forth. And very importantly, the emperor also says nice things about Rakshas and says not very nice thing about Kautilya, and he compares both of them. And again, Chanakya is boasting on page 233 that I am the one who had loosed his top knot with fingers that shook the rage and swore before the world, and he destroyed the Nandas, right? And I did it before very eyes of Rakshas. And emperor says that this was the doing of destiny that hated Nandas. So the emperor is pretending to say that it was not your great deed, it was done by destiny and so on. And Kautilya said the stupid always appeals to destiny, and wise are duly modest. So emperor is saying that you should be more modest. Kautilya says you want to degrade me to a servant, and so the entire act is this whole differences getting more and more bitter as the conversation proceeds. So by the time we come to the end of Act 3, right, we discover that at the end of it, emperor says to himself, at his own bidding, I have slighted my teacher, and I feel that I want to sink into the ground. When others commit such impiety in earnest, why do their heart not split in two with shame? So he says that I have insulted my teacher, and I feel so bad about it. That how come people can do these things at all? On page 234, Kautilya is leaving angrily, and he says, if you respect Rakshas more than me, here let him have my sword of the office. So he relinquishes his sword of his office and he goes away. Rakshas, so much for your superior wisdom, which you hope will defeat me. So he resigns from the post, right? And actually it is all part of a ploy because they want to install Rakshas to the position of Amatya, or a position of prime minister for Chandragupta. Yeah, Gaurav, you have to say something?
No, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay. So that's the Act 3 for you. Act 4 is again between Malay Ketu and Rakshas. Now, Malay Ketu always has a kind of suspicion for Rakshas. Though he trusts him, he also doesn't trust him much. And as being decided, Chanakya tries to poison Malay Ketu's ears against Rakshas in this. And so Malay Ketu is standing outside of Rakshasa's room and listening to the conversations that are going inside between the traveler who is with Shakat Das, right? And they are discussing the situation with Chamberlain. Look at page 239. where Bhagurayana is trying to instigate Malaiketu against Rakshas, to which Malaiketu says Minister Rakshas himself is the dearest and best of friends. To which Bhagurayan, probably Bhagurayan is also working for Chanakya. He says that Minister Rakshas is fighting against Kautilya and not Chandragupta. So, unlike Malaiketu's belief that Rakshas is fighting Chandragupta, he wants to convey an impression to Malaiketu that real enemy for Rakshas is not Chandragupta as he has been thinking, but Kautilya. So it's a kind of personal between Kautilya and Rakshas rather than, so Rakshas is not fighting for Malaiketu against Chandragupta, who he believes has killed his father, but he is actually fighting his personal battle against Kautilya. That's the kind of impression that he wants to convey. So then enters this spy called Karbaka, who tells Rakshas on page 241 about what he has heard from Stanakalash, that is the bard who was singing in that festival, where they saw Chanakya and Chandragupta fight. So he sends this as a good news that Chandragupta proclaimed to celebrate full moon festival, but Kautilya cancelled it, and thus there was a rancor and fight which led to Kautilya leaving his job. And that's why Rakshas is very happy. And then Karbaka says to Chandragupta, to Rakshas, that Chandragupta was actually praising Rakshas and was shouting at Kautilya. Now this is what Malaiketu, who is standing outside, overhears about Rakshas. So he loses his trust in Rakshas. Okay. Then there is again discussion on statecraft. I think this seems to be one of the important themes in the play about what is the correct statecraft. Right? You find it on 245 again, where Malaiketu and Rakshas are discussing how people who are disloyal should be treated by the kings. He says subjects are of two kinds, those who have helped him to power and those who are loyal to Nandas. Kautilya's fault has been estranging his own supporters, not those who were loyal to Nandas. So Malaiketu wants to wage a war against Chandragupta, and Rakshas says that this is not the right time to do it. And that actually confirms Malaiketu's kind of suspicion against Rakshas, that he is not really on our side. And at that moment, you have a Jain monk named Jeev Siddhi enter, and he has been arrested. So when he enters, page number 247, and it was believed in those days that if you step outside your house, as Priyam Vadaka is about to step out, he sees a Jain monk, and that is considered to be an ill omen. So why do you think this is there? Why are Jain monks considered to be ill omens? Any idea? Anyone? Why is the Jain monk considered an ill omen?
So could it be because they have different beliefs?
Okay. What are the differences?
Um, that we talked about um,
Hmm.
uh, that they don't believe in rebirth and the cycle of
They
birth and all.
don't believe in rebirth. No, they do believe in rebirth.
I don't remember the exact
Hmm. Does anyone
differences.
remember? Does anyone remember?
They are not in
Oh,
Varna system.
They don't follow Varna system. Why? Why do they do not follow Varna system?
Uh, Jain monks also believe in absolute renunciation and
Okay.
in this extreme form of ahimsa. So
Hmm.
uh, they differ from the norms of society in some ways because of that.
Yeah, but something more basic than that.
They also don't believe in Atman and Paramatman and all that, right?
Why? Anyone? Anyone who is a Jain here? Well, if you remember our discussion, then one of the oldest archive of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, is the Vedic oeuvre, right? Vedic corpus of Upanishads, Aranyaks, Brahmanas, and the Samhitas. Four kind of Vedic Samhitas and Rigveda, Atharvaveda, Samved, and Yajurved. Now, those people who do not believe in the authority of Vedas are called the Nastikas, right? Astikas are those who believe in the authority of Vedas. And authority of Veda is also called Shabda as a Praman. So there were two important major religions that did not accept Veda as the authority of knowledge, and they were Jainism and Buddhism. And so very often that led to conflict between the Vedikas and Avedikas, like Jainas, Buddhas, and the Vedic. Vedikas are people who follow Vedic or accept the authority of Vedic texts, right? So Jains were seen as belonging to other religion, and they were seen as antagonistic to each other. Yeah, Dharma, go ahead.
Sir, the Hindu beliefs and the Jain and Buddhist beliefs, as we see, they do overlap often and are similar. So, at like कौन सी चीज पे they differed and they did not agree with each
The one
other.
that I told you just now, right? Hindus believe in the authority of the Vedas. They are Vedikas, right?
Wouldn't the beliefs be similar in Vedas and in
There
Buddhist?
might be similarities. For example, that cycle of birth, rebirth, karma, dharma, many of the beliefs are similar. But how to achieve moksha or kaivalya, as Jains would call it, differed. Right? You don't accept Vedic authority. So Jainas and Buddhas or followers of Buddhism were sharply antagonistic in their attitudes towards Vedic. So they disagreed or they rejected the metaphysical beliefs of Vedas. That is the idea of Brahma, Atma and Brahma. So Buddhists don't believe that there is something like eternal soul or eternal super soul or Paramatma, right? They don't believe anything is eternal. Buddhists believe that everything is perishable. So there is no such thing like Atma. There is no such thing like Brahma. And everything is momentary. That's their metaphysical core idea. And they are also they don't accept Chatur Varna scheme. I hope you get what I'm saying. And Jati scheme that remains fundamental to Vedika traditions. Right? So you have three important traditions, large traditions, Vedika, Bauddhas, and Jainas. Now, Jainas would differ significantly not only from Vedikas, but also from Bauddhas. Right? So they would believe in Jiv, that is soul, which is not the same as Atma. Right? And Jiv is tarnished by karma, your actions, and that's why it has to take birth. So only thing that you can do is to renounce your actions, right? Any action that causes tarnishing the jiv has to be renounced. Basically hinsa of all kinds, right? Or attachment to something. So their metaphysics is based on complete renunciation of everything as the way out of the cycle of births and rebirth. So what is common to these three traditions, these three religions, is the idea that the whole world is samsara. That is, you are wandering. And because of karma, you have to be born and reborn. So all these three traditions, traditions of metaphysics and rituals and beliefs, three systems, you can say, three systems of belief is how to free yourself from the cycles of birth and rebirth. Right? So that is a commonality, dharma. But Vedikas don't accept, I'm sorry, the Bauddha and Jains don't accept Vedas. वेद में जो कुछ लिखा है उसका वो खंडन करते हैं. That's the difference. Yeah, Stuti. Is that clear, Dharma?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Right. Who is a Hindu becomes a problem because the term Hindu was never used by these three systems for their own thinking, right? It seems to have emerged, it was used earlier by the Greeks to talk about all these three panthas lying on that side of Sindhu River. That's why they call them Sindhus, and in Greek, Sa becomes her, so Hindus. So Greeks use this term to describe everyone who lives on that side of the river Indus. Later on, the Arabs, Persians, and the Turks also use the term Hindus to describe people who are living on this subcontinent. Right? And later on, Hindus started using it for themselves. So we find the use of the word Hindu becoming prominent in 13th, 14th century onwards. उससे पहले Hindu was not used as a descriptor of any religion. It's only with the advances of various kinds of rulers like Turks, Persians, Arabs, Mughals, right? And I don't use the word Islamic rulers because it's misleading. They were actually Turks, Mughals, Central Asians, Persians, Iranian Persians, and so on, and Mongols, right? And all these are ethnically very different. But they followed a similar religion called Islam, but they had a very different take on all these. So Islam is not a single religion, and all these rulers don't belong to a single mode of thinking, right? And they were constantly at war with each other. That's why, right? And Hindu was the term used to describe the other, and then I think it's 14th century onwards. 14वीं सदी के बाद Hindu became a common word on Indian subcontinent, right? So, and in 19th century it became Hinduism because of colonial encounter, right? People tried to think that this is also like Christianity or Islam or like Judaism. Yes, Hindu be ism, but it's not an ism. But it's more of three major systems: Vaidika, one Vedika system, and two Avaidika systems. Other Avaidika system were Ajivikas, right, who were destroyed very early, and Charvaks. These were also Nastika traditions, Charvaks and Ajaivikas. Charvaks did not believe in cycle of birth and rebirth. They believed that this body itself is a soul, and when you die, it's all finished. There is no next life. So they did not believe in the principle of karma. So that's the history of Indian knowledge systems, right? Is there anything that you want to say or ask about what we have discussed?
Sir, if Buddhism does not believe in Atma or the soul, then what do they think of? Like they still believe in the cycle of birth and death, right? So what is there after the body dies? Then what do they have for that?
That's the most complex question for the Buddhist, right? And the answer that they would give is something very interesting, and that is the answer that you find very often given in a book called Milind Panho, or the King Meander's question to the sage. King Meander was the Greek, or I think Greek king of what is today's Afghanistan and Pakistan, the north east. and he was a Buddhist, and he had a detailed discussion about Buddhism on various aspects of this. And I think the Buddhist monk, whose name was Nagsen, entered into a dialogue with King Meander called Milind. And that's how the book is called Milind Panho, or Prashna, Milind ke Prashna. And the answer is very interesting. Nagsen replies to this question by saying that just like milk turns into buttermilk or curds, and curds turn into butter, right? That's how we are born. So butter is not milk, right? Curds is not milk. So it is a kind of transformation that keeps on happening from birth to rebirth. Does that make any sense? दूध का दही बनता है, दही में से मक्खन बनता, दही में से छाछ बनता है, मक्खन बनता है. So is it the milk? No, it's not the milk, right? But at the same time, it is a kind of transformation of something that keeps happening through birth and rebirth. That is his answer. And I'm sure it's not a very satisfying one, but that's what they believed in.
Yes,
But
it's not satisfying. Because sir, ऐसा milk भी, even if it's taking another form, it still has some physical, entity of itself. But when
so
the
they
body
called it-
dies,
so they called it Udgala. Udgala was a kind of assemblage of your mental actions, your memories, which is not your soul, right? So there was a kind of assemblage of various things which decomposes and recomposes. And that is different from the Vaidika belief in rebirth. And the best example of Vaidika rebirth philosophy is found in Gita, where Krishna says that when one person dies and is reborn, it is like changing of the clothes. पुराने कपड़े निकालकर जीर्णानि वस्त्रानि, आपके पुराने वस्त्र निकालकर नए पहनते हो, वैसे you are reborn. So the self remains the same, but your clothes change. That is the Vedic theory of rebirth, as against the Buddhist theory of rebirth. And Jaina system of rebirth believes that there is something like Jeev, right? And that Jeev is tarnished by karma. And all our actions and the consequences of our actions. And that's why the idea is to renounce all the actions so that Jeev remains only Jeev, pure state of Kaivalya. So it is actions that cause birth and rebirth, not Jeev. That's Jaina philosophy for you. I don't know if there are Jainas in the class. So you have three metaphysical systems of rebirth. Egyptians had yet another system of rebirth which I found very interesting. उसमें ऐसा है कि आप अगर मैं मर जाऊं तो मेरा rebirth होगा फिर से सचिन के तौर पर, right? So they would mummify their kings and keep their favorite objects with them. So if you happen to be a pharaoh or king, then you would be mummified with your favorite cell phones. क्या आप फिर से इसी लाइफ में आओगे और आपको फोन तो लगेगा ना, पहली चीज आप वही करोगे, इस लाइफ में आके फोन चेक करोगे. यस, नो, मे बी. What will you do if you come back to this life? You will check your phones, obviously. टिंडर पे क्या हो रहा है, व्हाट्सएप पे क्या हो रहा है, फेसबुक, इंस्टा पे कितने लाइक्स आए, वही देखना है. तो फिर आपका फोन आपके साथ मम्मीफाई करना पड़ेगा. So these are the four theories of rebirth and transmigration of soul. And you can see all four are different from each other. I think this should be sufficient for one day, right? Heavy dose of metaphysics. So we'll discuss the remaining part of the play tomorrow. If you have to ask anything, then before we stop, any queries? No questions? Okay. So when we meet tomorrow in the next birth, we will continue with the chapter. Okay. So you tell me what theory you believe in, right? कौन सी सिस्टम आपको पसंद है rebirth की?
Sir, Hinduism, Vedic philosophy and Jain philosophy are seem to be more similar than Vedic and Buddhist philosophies.
Yes, there are similarities, but there are also radical dissimilarities. For example, there are Jain Ramayans and Mahabharats, where Krishna is seen as one of the great souls, Tirthankars, right? But then he goes to hell because he has committed violence. So Mahavir actually takes him out of hell. बचा लेते हैं कृष्ण को, क्योंकि इन सब लोगों ने हिंसा की है. हिंसा is the worst form of पाप that you can think of. Right? So there is an idea of ahimsa in Vedic thought. There is idea of ahimsa in Buddhism. There is idea of ahimsa in Jainism as well. In Jainism, you have it as an extreme form of ahimsa. So ahimsa is another common idea in the three systems. Yeah, Gaurav.
सर वो जो श्लोक है ना कि अहिंसा परमो धर्म, तो वो क्या वैदिक श्लोक है क्या?
वैदिक है वो.
अच्छा.
पर कृष्ण कहते हैं कि वो उतना भी परमो धर्म नहीं है. स्वधर्म इज ग्रेटर देन अहिंसा. दैट्स व्हाट कृष्ण सेज इन गीता.
उसमें कुछ कंट्रोवर्सी है कि किसी ने कहा था कि अहिंसा परमो धर्म, कुछ था उसमें कि धर्म की रक्षा के लिए हिंसा अच्छा है.
राइट, कृष्ण ही कह रहे हैं ना.
हाँ सर, सॉरी.
He's asking Arjun to kill his grandfather and cousins for sake of kingdom, and all of a sudden Arjun develops an attack of Buddhism and Jainism. He says मैं इन लोगों को, अपने लोगों को कैसे मारो, और वो भी किस चीज के लिए? तो गद्दी के लिए तो मैं नहीं मार सकता. Which Krishna says that no, you should follow your swadharma. Right? And swadharma is dharma of your varna, that is Kshatriya. So Kshatriya should behave like one. You have started talking like sannyasi and Brahmin. You have started talking like woman, as a klib, right? Transgender की तरह बात करने लग गए. So he taunts his gender as well. If you taunt somebody's manliness, then it becomes. But even then, it doesn't seem to affect Arjun, right? It goes on till 18 chapters. आखिर में उसे समझ में आता है 18 चैप्टर के बाद. तो आप लोगों को भी 18 चैप्टर्स के बाद हमारा सब्जेक्ट समझ में आने लगेगा, ऐसा लगता है. So you are in a good company. Yeah, Gaurav, go ahead.
सर आई हैड दिस क्वेश्चन कि जैसे फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर या सेकंड सेमेस्टर में हमको पता था कि लाइक आपने बताया था कि क्वेश्चंस कैसे फॉर्म होंगे, तो सर अब क्या आप एक आइडिया दे सकते हैं क्या? मतलब
आइडिया किस चीज पे डिपेंडेंट करेगा? देखो, whether it's going to be an offline test or online test. अगर ऑनलाइन टेस्ट होगा तो MCQ होगा, अगर ऑफलाइन होगा तो ऐसे टाइप आंसर्स आएंगे. So what is going to be decisive is what kind of examinations we will have. But that decision is not yet taken and I don't know. So I can't tell you at this juncture. my suggestion is at this juncture you should prepare for both. Is that clear
Alright,
for
sir.
everyone? Because we don't know if there is something like third wave and people are behaving as if they want third wave, right? If such things happen, then we'll have to go in for online tests, something that I am never happy with. And I'm sure you also, many of you won't be very happy with, but that's the Apat Dharma. Right? In Mahabharata, there is also something called Apat Dharma. Yani dharma, when it's a state of crisis, आपको कुछ भी खाने को नहीं मिल रहा है तो आप बाजू वाले को खा सकते हो. Right? भूख से मरने से बेहतर है. So आपात धर्म, MCQ is आपात धर्म. So we don't know. Prepare for both MCQ as well as essay type. अगर
Sir,
essay type होता है, then we will also have reference to context type. Yeah, Stuti, go ahead.
sir, लेकिन ऑफलाइन एग्जाम अकोमोडेट कहाँ पे होगी फिर? लाइक अभी बिल्डिंग तो है नहीं.
So all these questions are unanswered, and I am in no position to give you a definitive answer because I don't have it myself. This uncertainty is, we have been living with this uncertainty from past 1 year and a half. So I think we'll have to continue living with this uncertainty. But keep reading, keep discussing. You can also write and show things to me, right? I can give you a sample essay type questions once this text is done so that you know how to prepare for essay type questions. Is that done?
Yes, sir.
बिल्कुल. चलो तो मिलते हैं कल.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome and take care.